Pasture conditions across Oklahoma are changing because of the recent freezes, and Derrell, what does that mean for cattle?
Well, it may have some impact on our wheat grazing. You know, we've already passed, in much of the state, we've already passed first hollow stem, and so producers in many cases had already made the decision about whether they were going to graze out. Because of low wheat prices, that we've been hearing stories that there's more graze out happening this year. If the wheat got frosted, that just reinforces that decision for those producers. It may induce a few producers who had pulled cattle off, if they think they've got enough damage. We won't know for a few more days, but if they think they have enough damage, they could go back in and go back to a graze out decision. It's pretty late to go buy a whole new set of cattle. There's not a lot of time, so I don't know that we'll see a lot of that, but we could see some of it.
Now, parts of Oklahoma are starting to dry out. They haven't got those rains that we were hoping for. Is that going to affect cattle production in Oklahoma?
Well, at this time of the year, you know, the dry conditions that we're seeing in the Northwest and particularly out in the Panhandle are not a major concern. It's March, and particularly that far out, we're really not looking for a lot of green up or grass growth yet for another month or 5 or 6 weeks. And so, you know, it's something we want to keep an eye on. It could be the beginnings of a problem, and so we'll certainly want to keep an eye on it. But at this point in time, I don't see it as a major issue.
So we're not looking at the big sell-off of 2011.
No, absolutely not at this point. And you know, we're late enough in the game that I think we've got moisture to start the summer. Whether or not we get into problems by midsummer or late summer, we could see some of that develop. But again, it's just something right now to monitor more than anything.
And we have the benefit of actually pulling off some hay over the past year.
You know, forage stocks are in generally pretty good shape in terms of hay. Again, we've got moisture to start with for the most part, so I don't see this as even if it does develop into a drought, it's probably not a 2016 drought issue, other than perhaps very late in the year. It could set us up for bigger problems farther down the road if it were to be something that persists.
Okay, switching gears a little bit, it's been a few weeks since we've talked with you. Where are we at on the markets?
Well, you know, it's kind of been an early spring. We talked about that in terms of the wheat pasture, but also just in general in cattle and beef markets. We've seen several signs of a bit of an early spring. We've had a fairly nice seasonal run up in cattle prices. Feeder cattle, fed cattle, and box beef have all had a pretty nice run up, and some indication that we're a little ahead of schedule in terms of a bit of grilling demand. We've seen middle meats a little stronger, as well as some improvement in the wholesale ground beef market. All things that would suggest, because of the warm weather, we've got a kind of a jump start on some grilling. So I think we're a little ahead of the game there, and actually in pretty good shape at this point in time.
What's the demand like for U.S. beef across the world?
Well, we're still struggling, of course, with the headwinds from the strong dollar, although that has actually, you know, come down a little bit in the last few weeks as well. So, you know, we think 2016 will be certainly better than 2015 from a beef export standpoint, maybe more of a stabilizing market than really a big improvement. And we do expect less beef imports this year. So from a domestic supply standpoint, probably beef supplies they'll go up because we expect an increase in production, but they won't go up as much because we're going to offset some of that increased production with less beef imports.
Okay, thank you much. Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.